psychological specialist, and he has some pretty cool stories to tell. And he's also a pretty energetic dude, so hold on to whatever it is that you came with and prepare yourself for the one and only Bill Schneider. Yes, applaud, Bill.
Have you all had a good day today? All right, so give Miss Kim Ames a big hand for those of you who are still here. Okay, because without her and her vision and stuff, this wouldn't even happen. So why are we here today? We're here to touch lives. Some of your lives, or somebody that you know's life. So the reality of this whole day is that if you walk out of here with a couple of nuggets and a couple of thoughts that you may be able to change somebody else's life, that's why we're here. So my expertise or so is a thing called the hyperbaric chamber. Oh yeah, where's the clicker? Y'all got a clicker? Is it ready to go? Okay. So I actually started one of the first clinics in the United States about 15 years ago. Came from Los Angeles and didn't know what I was doing, and probably still don't. But we've treated over 17,000 people in my clinic. I work with probably more professional athletes than anybody in the world. But more importantly, as I use the tools of the athletes I work with to do what really is important to me, it was my children with autism and brain injuries, Parkinson's, dementia, stroke, cancer, etc. So, you know, we have heroes in our world that we think are our heroes, which are our athletes and entertainment people. Those are not the heroes. My heroes are the mothers that come to my clinic, the ones that have stayed up late at night. Like one of my patients that I'm talking to right now, her son has Lyme disease. And she doesn't go to sleep until 6 o'clock in the morning because he's been in a room for 4 months, has not seen sunlight because he's that sensitive. So there are so many people out there suffering, not only with cancer, but other conditions and diseases. So if we can make a difference in some of those lives, that's why we're here. So I want you to try to just slow down your lives for a minute or so. And just kind of get yourself in a place that can get moved. So whenever I speak, whether it's in front of a few people or a lot of people, I like to bring music in. So before I do that, I just want, well, no, we'll do that first. We'll play the music, and then I'll ask you all a couple of questions. I'm going to shorten my talk a little bit, actually quite a lot, okay, just for the benefit of the other speakers that are coming up. So come see me when I'm done or so, get a card from me or so. You can come to my clinic. We give free treatments to everybody so that everybody can experience this. This is something that we all should be able to experience. Not, you know, it doesn't matter economically wise, okay? So what I want you to do just for a moment is I want you to just kind of take a deep breath. So everybody kind of just take a deep breath for a moment. I want to hear those deep breaths. Not coughing. Okay. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to put yourself in a place that's a happy place. Your happy place, not mine. And I'm going to play a song for you. And some of you will recognize it, and those that don't recognize it, that's okay. But I want you to imagine what it would be like if there was no sickness in the world. I want you to imagine what it would be like if you could go to bed at night knowing that your father who had a stroke is going to get better. That your child who has cancer is not going to be sick anymore. That the hand of God is going to come into your family's home and lift your family and your spirits and bring you to a place of peace. I want you to imagine what it's like to be like that. Because until we think about it that way, we're never going to get where we want to go. How are we supposed to figure out where we want to be when you don't even know where we're at? I have people coming to my clinic all the time. They want me to heal them. I can't heal anybody. What I can do, though, is I can give you some hope to make a difference in your life, that you have control of your life. Don't let anybody ever tell you there's nothing that can be done. Because as long as you're breathing, as long as you have hope, there's always something that can be done. I have doctors tell me, the type of patients that I deal with, why are you even troubling yourself? You can't help this person. And I just smile. Because they're not God and neither am I. But I do know that we can make a difference in the world. So keep your eyes closed, put yourself in that happy place, and just think about the words of this song. And think about your loved ones or somebody that you know that you want to make a difference in their life. Okay? Maestro. Hit it. Are we at number 4? Good.
I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. To my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever worship you. I can only imagine.
Okay, thank you for entertaining me for a moment or so. I hope that you remember that song in your future, because it truly is. I can only imagine what it would be like if we could heal the people who couldn't be healed. So I just want to share a little bit of information with you on hyperbaric medicine. How many of you know anything about hyperbaric medicine? Raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2. How many of you would like to know something about hyperbaric medicine? Raise your hand. Okay, good. So how many of you think hyperbaric medicine is traditional medicine, or do you think it's alternative medicine? If you think it's traditional medicine, raise your hand. If you think it's alternative medicine, raise your hand. Interesting, okay? All right. So somebody got to be right, right? What would happen if we said it was a little bit of both? Okay. So I want everybody to stand up just for a quick second, just for a moment. Stand up. And I want you to sit down when I tell you to sit down, but stand up right now. I want you to tell me, or how many of you think hyperbaric medicine has been around for at least 5 years or more? Stand up and raise your hand. 5 years. How about 10 years? Okay, if it's 20 years, sit down. Okay, that took some of you. How about 30 years? Sit down. Well, it took a lot more of you. Okay, how about 40 years? Sit down. Okay, there's a couple people still standing. How about 50 years? Okay, let's get crazy. How about 100 years? 100 years. 150 years? There's a couple people still standing. 200 years? You think hyperbaric medicine has been around for 200 years? You're crazy. How about you back up there? You somebody standing up there, huh? How about 300 years? How about 400 years? How about 1,000 years? Hyperbaric medicine's been around since 4500 BC. Does that surprise a lot of you? So hyperbaric medicine is not something that's new. Hyperbaric medicine's been around literally for centuries. Matter of fact, I have a book in medical school here. I always like to bring it just so some people can see it, so that they challenge me. What would you do with the book? And this is a textbook in medical school on hyperbaric medicine. And there's about 3 areas. They tell you how does hyperbaric medicine work, and they tell you the clinical applications of it. So it's interesting because when you go through the chapters of the book, the very first chapters is the history of hyperbaric medicine dating back to 4500 BC. Then we see more pages in here that look back into times of the 1920s in Cunningham, and dive charts from the 16th century to current. So it's really important for us to understand this is not new medicine. But here's the problem. The problem is people decided to play God on who had access to it or didn't have access to it. So as long as you had one of the conditions that your local hospital may have, they may even have a hyperbaric chamber at the bottom of the hospital. If you had carbon monoxide poisoning, will they treat you? Yes. If you had a diver with the beds, will they treat you? Yes. If you had a flesh-eating bacteria wound, will they treat you? Yes. If you were a burn victim, will they treat you? Yes. So there's about 13 conditions that they're going to treat. But if you had anything other than those 13 conditions, they call it off-label use. And what does that mean? What's off-label use mean? So what's that really mean? That's right, baloney. But she says it's not approved by the FDA. But what does it really mean? It means insurance is not going to pay for it. That's what it means. So if Dad has a stroke, which was a lack of oxygen to the brain, and we have a hyperbaric chamber at the bottom of the hospital empty, it would make sense that the nurse would say to the doctor, can we send Mr. Paulson down to the basement to get hyperbaric treatments? But when she does that and the doctor tries to do it, they go downstairs and they won't let them in the door. Because other than those 13 conditions, they're not going to be available for us to use. Okay? So it's really sad that we have probably one of the greatest tools in medical history in our own toolbox, in our own hospitals, and we don't have access to it. If you were to name the top 20 medical treatments of all time, hyperbaric medicine would be in the top 20. But it's the most misused medicine of all time. So in that book that I was just showing you, there's chapters 10 through 39 talk about the different types of conditions they treat. So remember we said how many treatments? How many different conditions they treat? 13. Then why in the medical textbook does it show about 30 or so different conditions in here? Why does it show neurological disorders and plastic surgery and dermatology and neurological disorders and cancers and all these other chapters? From here to here. All chapters in our medical textbooks. But we don't have access to it. So about 15 years ago, a portable hyperbaric chamber was invented. And when that happened, it changed medical history, because now for the very first time in history, we can bring hyperbaric medicine to the people. We have over 16,000 chambers in service today, with millions of treatments being done every day and lives being changed on a daily basis. It is my honor and my blessing to serve the needs of the families in my own clinic. I have the greatest job in the world. I get to watch a child and hold them in my arms that can't speak and watch them say their first word. I get to watch stroke patients walk out of wheelchairs. I get to watch cancer patients live and not die because of oxygen. It's amazing what a little oxygen can do to the human body, or more importantly, what a lack of oxygen can do to it. So this picture here was in Decatur, Alabama. I never thought I'd have a hyperbaric chamber in front of an altar in a church. This was a great day. When I took this picture and I walked away and I took the picture and I said, oh my gosh, look at this. But that's about as close as you're going to get, okay? So, I mean, to a church, right? I mean, right? So we just talked about this here. I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff here. It's been around for literally for centuries. The importance of oxygen is pretty evident in our lives. How many of you think you can live without water for a period of time? Raise your hand. Without water for a period of time, can you raise your hand? How about without food? Raise your hand. I can live a long time. My wife says, prosperity. How long can you live without oxygen to the brain? Not long at all. Isn't that kind of a clue for us? I have a patient right now, her husband strangled her, left her to die, she should have never lived. Her knees are at her chest. She's like this here and she just stares at you. I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story because it's very, very sad. But she was told nothing, that there's nothing you can do. Sandra comes to my clinic on Saturdays. Today, her legs are on the ground. When she sees me, I say, Sandra, it's Mr. Bill. I'm going to come kiss you. And she gets all excited and she waves her hands. And we have a chance with Sandra. But her result was a lack of oxygen in the brain, no different than my stroke patients and others, neurologically speaking. Okay? Hyper means, increase. Baric means pressure. So on this side of the room, I want you over here, I want you to say hyper. Gosh. Hyper. And over here. Baric. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. Listen, you guys just learned the most important thing that you can learn. It's very simple. We decrease inflammation and increase blood flow. It's not complicated. We make medicine way too complicated. If a stroke was caused from a lack of oxygen to the brain, what would happen if I got oxygen back to the brain? A lot of times I'll bring up children up here and I'll ask them if they know what a stroke is. They tell me no, then I turn around and explain to them what a stroke is. Then I ask them if they were the doctor, what would they do? What do you think an 8-year-old kid would say on a stage if I told him a stroke is caused from a lack of oxygen? And this is exactly what the kids say. They go, well, duh, Mr. Bill, I'd get more oxygen to his brain. Isn't that ironic that an 8-year-old kid can get it, and yet we're not doing it in our own facilities? Okay, so hyper meaning more, baric meaning pressure. The common denominator of all diseases and conditions is what? Inflammation. So hyperbaric medicine decreases inflammation and increases blood flow. Matter of fact, an hour in a hyperbaric chamber is equivalent to taking 40 Motrin as an anti-inflammatory without the side effects. So what do you think my arthritic patients feel like when they use the hyperbaric chamber? Huge, huge difference. It's a safe, effective way. It's not invasive. It enhances oxygen-dependent vital cell processes. This is just the physics of the basic physiology of hyperbarics. But this is the key of the whole deal. So I want you to say Henry. And I want you to say law. Okay. One more time. Okay, Henry is a good old boy. We could have learned from the guys in the past in medicine and stuff. Henry basically said a couple of things. He said that any gas, when it's under pressure, will turn around and dissolve in liquid. So the gas is oxygen, the pressure is the chamber, and the liquid is your blood. So hyperbaric medicine allows us to take a gas of oxygen, We lower you into a hyperbaric chamber at 11 feet below sea level in a portable chamber, which is the most that we can do. Higher pressure is considered anything above 1.3 atmospheres. That's what you will see in the hospitals, which we also have a hard shell chamber in my clinic, but which predominantly we use about 1.3 atmospheres. So any gas under pressure will now dissolve into a liquid. So it's kind of like this here. If I put some sugar in a cup of coffee, what happens to the sugar? It dissolves. So if I put, that dissolved sugar and then I fill the glass of water up to the top of the glass, and now we can't fill the glass anymore because the water is going to do what? It's going to spill over. So that's kind of like what happens. If I'm going to change somebody's biological history, the only truthful way we can do it is go back to the very beginning where it all started at the cellular level. The cells make up the tissues make up the organ does the function. So hyperbaric medicine literally is the only medicine that attacks everything in the human body at one time. It has no prejudice. It doesn't know if I have an autistic child in my chamber and a mother. It doesn't know if I have an NFL football player in the chamber. It doesn't know if it's Parkinson's, stroke, cancer. It doesn't know any of that. Its job is to saturate the human body with oxygen and utilize that oxygen throughout the human body. So, I can't see how that looks to you guys. Those are some red blood cells, basically. The big donuts, what do you think those are? Those are cells. So the area that's in between that area, that's the plasma. So interesting is that we've got about 4 atoms in a cell, right? Which is about 1 million per atom. It's like 4 million. But really where we have more opportunity to deliver oxygen is in the plasma itself. Kind of like if I spill water on this stage, the water is going to go everywhere. So hyperbaric medicine allows me to saturate the red blood cells, affect what's happening with the white blood cells, and cross the blood-brain barrier. We do all this at one time from head to toe. So what do the red blood cells do? They carry oxygen. What do the white blood cells do? They fight bacteria, virus, infection, and disease. So keep it simple again. Okay? So just imagine this. I've got 3 circles in front of me, okay? These are red blood cells. And this is just hypothetical. The middle cell has 5 little dots in it. That's a normal, healthy red blood cell. Life is good. Happy, happy cell. But the cell above it, it only has 3 dots of oxygen in it. That cell's been compromised oxygen because I either have a disease, a condition, or some type of injury. What happens in the chamber, the bottom circle, we fill that little puppy up. In a short period of time, we can fill that red blood cell up. If I measured your oxygen levels now, they're 96, 97%. Now we can get them filled up. So now we're still under hyperbaric conditions. So where do you think the oxygen goes? It goes in between those areas of the plasma that allows me to bring blood flow to tissues, organs, glands, and bone density in the human body from head to toe. It's unbelievable. A diabetic has his toes cut off because of blood flow, the lack of blood flow to the feet. So what happens if I can get blood flow to that area? Do you think we can help that diabetic? Of course we can. So if that's all hyperbaric medicine did, that's unbelievable. But it goes deeper than that. The white blood cells, and I'm just going to throw some nuggets at you. The white blood cells, that's a chamber. Those are some of my unhappy kids in the chamber. Don't they look like they hate it? You know who I have more problems with? The moms. Oh, I can't do that. That's why we have duct tape at my clinic. I have pink duct tape for the moms and blue duct tape for the dads. Because the kids jump in. They think it's cool. It's like a pup tent to them. Did they look unhappy? Those are all autistic kids. Okay? The white blood cells, let's go back to them. The white blood cells fight bacteria, virus, infection, and disease. So a couple key things. When oxygen goes into a cell, it forces toxins out. Oxygen in, toxins out. So repeat that after me. Oxygen in, toxins out. So the more oxygen is available for the cell, what do you think happens? The more the body is able to detoxify. It's one of the reasons why we use it in the hospitals for carbon monoxide poisoning. There are some contraindicators, but I don't listen to them. There's a couple I pay attention to, but most of them are meant for if we're using deep pressure with 100% pure oxygen in a canister. Claustrophobic has nothing to do with you going in a hyperbaric chamber or not. Matter of fact, in a pregnant woman, the first trimester we say not to go in it. Some of the best things that they can be doing for our women. I can tell you cases about we've actually saved children's lives from CP and brain injury because of hyperbarics. The mother was in the chamber a week before the delivery. Okay, but there are a couple of things. The biggest thing in the portable chamber I'm looking at is if they have COPD. It's probably the biggest thing. If they're insulin dependent, I want to know about their insulin numbers because it's going to drop about 50 points. So if they're at, I don't want to put anybody in my chamber if they're less than 150. Go get your numbers up a little bit until we get to 150. Okay. So we're going to go back to the white blood cells. So oxygen goes in, toxins go out. Okay, good. All right, second of all, when oxygen goes into a cell, the mitochondria, the engine of the cell, produces what? ATP. Give that person a big hand up there, man. That's good, okay? All right, now, that's your energy. So the more oxygen that's available for the cell, the more the cell produces more energy, which is the reason why my athletes want to use hyperbarics. They want more endurance, energy, and stamina, and to recover, which is no different than my stroke patients, Parkinson's, and others. Imagine having a father having a Parkinson's and he's going like this all day long. What do you think his energy is like? I mean, if I asked you right now just to take your hand and do this for like a minute, before you know it, your hand would drop to the ground. You have nothing left. My stroke patients, when they go through physical therapy, that physical therapist is trying to unlock that arm. It's very difficult. It's taking every ounce of energy that they have just to do that. When they go home, they want to sleep. My kids that have seizures, they're wiped out when they're done. So that mitochondria is producing more energy. That's a huge thing for us. Hyperbarics as an anti-inflammatory or role to play in inflammation. We kind of talked about that. These are some studies. Some of my athletes, I'm just going to speed this up. So one of my plastic surgery patients, that the doctor made some major mistake, and her face was actually turning black. They put nitroglycerin paste on. That didn't work. We put it in a hyperbaric chamber, portable chamber, and it literally saved this woman's face from making some serious challenges. One of my stroke patients that fell down, and this was after 3 treatments. Her eye to the left, to the right was after 3 treatments. Mohs surgery with wound healing. Nice little case on that there. Hyperbaric oxygen role in today's cancer treatments, okay? So which is going to take me to that part. So we said that oxygen going into the mitochondria produces more energy. So let me ask you this here. Does cancer love oxygen or hate oxygen? How many of you think cancer loves oxygen? Raise your hand. Oh, these are the smart people. This is a smart class. Okay, so it hates, why does it hate oxygen? Okay, so the interesting thing, you're absolutely right. How many of you ever heard of a guy named Odom Warburg? Raise your hand. Okay, interesting. You know what? We can learn from our grandparents. We can learn from the elders. The guy that lives next door to me, he's a fisherman. And every time when my grandkids come to visit me, they want to say, Papa, let's go fishing. And I always say, well, let me go get Mr. Grant. Why? Because Mr. Grant knows how to tie the fishing line. Okay? I don't. I always forget how to do it. I need to stop and learn from Mr. Grant next door. We had some great physicians and great people from our past. And we put them in, and we shoved them under the table and threw them under a bus. Warburg in 1930 was a biochemist from Germany, did all his research on cancer. This is what he said. He said, you all have cancer cells. They're going to come out 6 or 7 times in your lifetime. When they come out, if your body is able to take care of it, the immune system is strong enough, they're not going to bother you. But as time goes on, it becomes weakened. The cancer cells come out and say, listen, I don't have anybody bothering me. So I'm going to multiply. By the time a woman has a mammogram, it's already the size of a pea. We can do a thermography and find out cancer 10 years before it's even gotten to that point, just by blood flow. So Warburg said this. He said the primary cause, number one reason for cancer is a lack of oxygen at the cellular level. And the true treatment for cancer was to saturate the human body with oxygen and to avoid further environmental toxins. 1930. He also said cancer is fed by sugar. And it likes the body when it's either acidic or alkaline. Acidic. So again, it's not rocket science, folks. If cancer likes an acidic environment, likes sugar, and doesn't like oxygen, then we want to flip it. Take the sugar away, put the body in an alkaline state, and flood it with oxygen. Warburg won 2 Nobel Prizes for that research, and we put it under the table. Many of us today are using hyperbaric chambers along with nutritional IVs, vitamin C, glutathione, et cetera, and our cancer patients are living and not dying, or the quality of their life was tremendously improved before they may have passed. So it's a huge deal. But how many of you knew about that? There's chamber in hospitals and so there. This is like a little bit of wound care, pretty significant of what happens after 50 treatments. When this guy's was actually going to lose that limb. The benefits of hyperbarics in sports, everything from reducing swelling and pain, hypoxic to traumatized tissues, et cetera. These are some of my patients that I've treated in the past: Mario Lemieux, Terrell Owens, Charlie Ward, John Smoltz. John Smoltz actually had 3 chambers. He wouldn't go anywhere without his chambers. He wanted to make sure that his recovery process was going on. Anybody recognize this person? A guy named Hines Ward from Georgia. Played with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl. Trey Hardy says, "This is the fastest I've ever recovered in a decathlon." He was the runner-up for the silver medal in the decathlon. These are some studies here on hyperbaric inflammation and GI issues, reflux, colitis, obstruction. Again, I'm going through this pretty quickly, trying to save everybody some time. This is Pam. Pam's kind of interesting. Pam was in a coma for 3 months. When I got her to the clinic, she came to my clinic, she was in a wheelchair. All she did was drool and stare at me. And I used to tell Pam, "Hang on, Pam, I'm coming. I'm coming, Pam. Hang in there." I said, "Someday you're going to tell me to shut up." Today, Pam drives her own car. She hangs out at the American Legions, drinks beer with the guys. She was in the Coast Guard. Her life has completely changed. She's going to be speaking with me at a hospital in DeKalb County in about another week or so, because if you saw her, you would never know what her life was like. 3 months in a coma, stroked out, in a wheelchair, drooling, and couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't wipe her own tail. This is Miss Sandra, the lady I was just talking to you a few minutes ago. Pretty amazing woman, what's happening with her. I mean, we're just so blessed. Such an honor to put my arms around Sandra each day, each Saturday at our clinic. It's God's blessings. You know, I have these children that are always in my clinic. I feel like sometimes I'm the Pied Piper of Hamlet. I get to hold these children in my arms and realize they have the automatic ticket to the kingdom of heaven. They're innocent. Autism, Down syndrome, traumatic brain injuries, etc. And those parents are the legal guardians of those children. They have an automatic ticket. So that's why I say I have the greatest job in the world. I get to work with families like this here and change their lives. This is Courtney, who has Down syndrome. Of course, I can't change the chromosome, but she has a lot of things that we could help with. It's amazing. CP, he's got a twin brother that has autism. Huge differences in these families' life. If you can change the quality of somebody's life even 10%, is that worth doing something? Rather than going down the road that we've been going down on pharmaceutical drugs, et cetera, and having more toxins and more challenges? Fetal alcohol syndrome, inflammation in brain patients with autism. This is Hope Parker. She was on 5 Ritalin a day. That's enough to knock all of us out as adults. By the time that we got her down with it at her clinic, she was down to 1. And when we first got her, she didn't want you to touch her. She didn't want you to be around her. By the time that she left the clinic, all she wanted to do was hug you. She just wanted to have somebody love on her. But she couldn't do that because the Ritalin was making that happen. I've got a patient that has rheumatoid arthritis so bad that what ended up happening was she became a grandma drug addict at age 70. From 55 to 70, she was eating anti-inflammatories like candy and 6 Vicodin a day. And she only weighed 82 pounds. So we got her to the clinic. Within 2 weeks, she was off all anti-inflammatories. Within a month, she was off all Vicodin, and within 3 months, the massage therapist was able to open each one of her fingers. So in hyperbarics, we're able to decrease medications because the medications become more effective and more efficient. Supplementation becomes more effective and more efficient and dissolves into the bloodstream and into our body, being able to be utilized by us. So we don't have to take as much drugs and get better results. That's Natasha. Natasha has part of her brain missing. She has seizures every day. They last for 20 to 25 minutes. She's got cerebral palsy in her right hand, no circulation in her lower extremities. She's blind and she's deaf. Her doctor said there's nothing you can do. I met the family at a CC's Pizza when I first got in from California. I didn't even know what CC's Pizza was. But they had all-you-can-eat pizza, and now you know what that means, right? So I found out that's a good place for me to hang out. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There was nobody else there except the mother that was holding her in her arms. When I walked up to the mother, I said, "This is your daughter? What's wrong with her?" Because see, when I was in line getting my food, Natasha reached out to me like this. And I said, "Oh my gosh, Father, okay, I'll go. We'll talk to the family, okay?" I invited them to my clinic at 3 o'clock on that Wednesday afternoon. I told the mother to bring her child back to me the next day at 3 o'clock. I didn't understand the importance of what 3 o'clock was going to mean until years down the line. The next day, the mother brings Natasha back to the clinic with her. And she sits in my office, and she's got tears pouring down her eyes. And she said, "My daughter had a seizure." Remember, the seizures were 20 to 25 minutes before, every day. And then she was wiped out for 8 hours. That day, she had a seizure that only lasted for 2 minutes. It was the shortest seizure that Natasha had ever had in her life. In the first month, we reduced the seizures from 781 minutes to less than 110 minutes in the first month alone. Natasha took her first 8 steps in life. She opened up her hand. We know she's not blind because we put Dora the Explorer on a DVD player and she would reach out to it. We know she's not deaf because she'd hear my voice and she'd turn her head. So do we have a chance with Natasha? Absolutely. This is Tyler, who has Asperger's, form of autism, high functioning. He came to my office one day. He used to always come in my office and run and sit on my lap. "Mr. Bill," and he would tell me everything I want to know about turtles. This kid knew everything you could talk about on turtles. But one day he came in and he saw that were people in my office and he said, "Mr. Bill, I can see that you're busy right now. I'll come back later." My mouth dropped. Because see, Tyler got it. His mother was on the other side of the door crying because that was appropriate behavior for him. The part of his brain that was dysfunctioning was the social skills. This will be getting to the end here. Like I said, I'm cutting a lot of stuff out just because of time. Dr. Carsonell and Dr. Buckley and myself did one of the first investigational studies in this country on autism and hyperbaric medicine. And the results were from this study here. And it was pretty profound. We graded in 4 areas: speech, language, and communication, social ability, sensory and cognitive, and health, well-being, and behavior issues. When you do a clinical study, there's a thing called the p-value that says, the medical community says, if you're not above 95, don't even talk to us. So our p-value for speech, language, and communication was 0.036, which meant that about 97.5% of these children responded. On the social area, it was about 95.5%. On the cognitive and sensory issues, it was 0.002. That was about 99.9998%. And then the health, physical, and behavior issues, it was 100%. We knew we would be challenged by the medical community, so we did SPECT scans, which is a way for us to look at the brain and see what the function of the brain was based on activity. So this boy is 8 years old. He was pretty severely autistic. These were his issues. These were his individual scores on the areas that we talked about, but this is what's most important and most mind-boggling to you, is this here. This is what his brain looked like before hyperbarics and 40 treatments later. On the left-hand side, you can see the brain is not active in a lot of areas. 40 treatments later is lighting up like a Christmas tree. Pretty profound. It's like Why would you have a speech therapist working with this kid if the brain isn't functioning correctly? So we're able to cross the blood-brain barrier, deliver oxygen and blood flow to parts of the brain we couldn't get there. So it's kind of like this here. If this room was a big brain and we had 10,000 neurons in it, and 2,000 were working or weren't working at all, we would still have 8,000. Out of those 8,000, 4,000 are working fine. But the other 4,000 have been damaged or are not working completely fine. They're at 20% or 30%. All of a sudden, I bring blood flow to the area right there, and when I do that there, I get to bring that blood flow to this lady right here, and I wake her up. Okay? And because she's so far from this lady, she's got to find a way to touch her somehow. And she does, and that touches here, and all of a sudden back there, and we get it all around the area here, and all of a sudden this gentleman that's on the right over here, furthest away, he's in a wheelchair, he walks out of the wheelchair, or the child says his first word, because we have a new pathway we never had before. Is this making sense? So that's what happened for him. After 4 treatments in the chamber, Ben sits at a piano for about a half an hour and plays a song. I went to the space capsule, now I feel better. These are a few of my favorite things. He goes through the night without wetting his bed for the very first time ever. He sits with his sister, he's got eye contact with her. Eye contact with Mickey Mouse. I told him he should have found Minnie Mouse, not Mickey Mouse. Mom's less tired and irritable. Mom has more patience and energy. Ben was able to sit with the family at the dinner table. Family is sleeping at night. JP's 4 years old. These were his scores. These were his scores here. This was his SPEC scan before and after. Speech therapist called it the best he's ever had in, 1 minute? Okay. Best he's ever had in about 18 months of therapy. He was also very energetic, but truly energetic. He said his first 4-word sentence tonight, I want open door. He knew exactly what he was saying. And then we kind of go on to a couple other cases. The end of this here is all about this little girl said her first word after 120 treatments in a bowling alley. She said mama for the first time in her life. This is all on concussions and post-traumatic syndrome, etc. They told me I have like 30 seconds now, I think, so I'm going through fast. That's 10, 5. That's Brett Farr and me. That's Sylvester Stallone at his house with my wife. This is all on concussions and stuff there. So the point that I'm trying to get across to you all is this here. Hyperbaric medicine has no prejudice. It helps all of us. Cancer is just one of the areas that we can help. A lot of times what happens is families start using hyperbarics and other things are happening for them. Depression is being decreased. Our typical patients in our clinic fall in 3 categories. The first group is people who have migraine headaches and cluster headaches. They have asthma and allergies, sleeping disorders, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, skin disorders. None of them are life-threatening, but they're issues. The second group is much more serious. Parkinson's, dementia, stroke, pre- and post-surgery, MS. The number 1 treatment for multiple sclerosis all throughout Europe is MS, or for MS is hyperbaric medicine. Cancers and all your bacteria and viruses, AIDS, hepatitis, etc. And the last group is the athletes. The athletes using it for performance enhancement and endurance, energy, and stamina. So I leave you with this thought, about an hour and a half presentation that was crammed into about, I don't know, a few minutes, as quick as I could. And I appreciate you all staying awake enough just to keep coming here. You got 2 more to go, okay? The best are coming up, okay? So stay and see Ty Bollinger and Mr. Bell. They're wonderful speakers. But again, I just want to thank Ms. Kim Ames, and give her a big hand, and all her staff, like the Wizard of Oz people that are back here. Give them a hand. Come on out here. Come on here. Give me a hand for her. All right? Give them a hand, okay? Give yourselves a hand for being here. And remember what I said. Never, never, ever give up. Okay? Many blessings.
Amen. Thank you, sir.